shrubs and trees generally are destructed because the roads are torn up, and this could be a factor in our area because of the sand base that we have for soil. And it's also very difficult to install in hilly terrain. If we go on to Plan A2, which is the low pressure grinder pump system, and this is the Dillon preferred option. As Ernie talked, it involves a small tank in which the effluent flows into it, and inside the tank is a grinder pump. The soils are macerated into sort of a slurry, and ultimately that slurry is pumped through small 4-inch diameter lines to a central treatment facility. Again, there are advantages and disadvantages to this as well. It's much lower cost than a gravity system, particularly if you're not planning on rejuvenating the road. If you do so, we found out from South Huron that the costs are very comparable between the two systems. And that's where most of the money goes in. That is the difference between the two. It is less invasive because they use directional boring to put in the small diameter pipe. And it can be suited to all types of terrains, including hilly areas, because you're now putting pressure on the fluids to flow to the treatment facility. Disadvantages: higher operating costs and maintenance. We found in contacting municipalities that had this, and again, we never saw any municipality that treated a whole area with grinder pumps. Generally, they put in gravity and found they ran into some problems with certain lots, and that's when they went to the low pressure system. The other disadvantage, of course, is that the electrical cost to run the pumps is borne solely by the homeowner. Next slide. Again, in talking with operating engineers in other municipalities that have these systems, they found that in some cases tanks have collapsed in the rainy season due to the hydrogeologic pressure. Backflow check valves can tend to stick, particularly if human hair is prevalent in the effluent. Sand also causes a problem because once it gets in, it wears the impellers in the grinder and in the pump. This doesn't, low pressure system also has a tank that has to be pumped out periodically, not as frequently as a normal septic tank, but solid materials do accumulate in the bottom. And we found the manager saying that these systems have an audio and visual alarm when they fail. People tend to get annoyed with them when they go off, and consequently they either put a Tim Hortons cup on the visual light, or else they shut off and overcome the audio signal, which means that they have to more or less conduct a weekly inspection of all of these homes just to make sure that that isn't happening and they fail. Next slide. A third option is what's called a septic effluent pump. Basically, you retain your septic tank and you use it as you would conventionally, a 2-chamber tank. The effluent from the second chamber is then simply pumped to the treatment facilities. The septic tank is pumped as normal because solids will again precipitate down and are collected. The benefit is to the lagoon if you have a lagoon sanitary treatment facility, because you're providing it far less nutrient material. The drawback is for a mechanical STF, because generally these plants are set up to operate on a particular nutrient load, and if now you're reducing the amount of nutrients, they would have to be adjusted for that particular event. Option I call A4 are other systems, and this is what Ernie talked about, and this is what we've heard from most municipalities, is they combine the gravity system with low pressure and provide gravity where it's feasible and economically viable, and low pressure where it's not. A further type of system we came upon was called an air vacuum one, and it's very attractive. It's used quite extensively in the southern United States. It uses centralized vacuum pumps that pull the effluent from your home into collecting tanks at a particular station. From there, it is then pumped to the sanitary treatment facility. Unfortunately, it is not very suitable for a hilly terrain. Trying to get a vacuum to pull water uphill is generally very difficult, and it also requires operators 24/7, because if the pumps should fail, everything will back up and creates a lot of problems. There was one instance that we came across in which a community in the southwest area of Ottawa was proposing to put this in because they had very level ground, and as yet they haven't done so, but they're still pursuing it. Finally, Plan D are the on-site systems. The on-site systems or septic tanks are a form of activated sludge treatment, the same as would be used in a sanitary treatment facility. The individual septic tanks are regulated under the Ontario Building Code, and they are under the jurisdiction of Lambton County. And it's the Building Services Department that approves them and then is responsible for inspecting the system. There's been a lot of talk recently about pending septic system re-inspection programs. The current program, which is based upon visual inspection of the surface soil, is actually not very well suited to our particular area, which contains sandy soils in Lambton Shores. As a consequence, no program has been initiated by the county, who are waiting actually for a more meaningful program here where it can actually be more invasive, actually go in and have a look at the septic tank and then be able to look at some of the effluent that is coming out of the weeping bed. That isn't happening in the near future, and they're waiting in order to do that because it would be quite expensive for external funding. However, re-inspection programs are being initiated in other municipalities in the province. Septic systems are actually defined in the building code according to three categories. The tank itself provides what's called primary treatment. This is where most of the activity of degrading the various materials in the sewage down to clear water. Secondary and tertiary treatments are defined in terms of the units I referred to earlier, biological oxygen demand, carbonaceous oxygen demand, and suspended solids. And the Ministry of the Environment has regulations that indicate what these values have to be, and they have to be met to a certain standard before a system is approved as a tertiary system. Tertiary systems generally are accompanied by additional trains, which means that they will have associated with them another tank or some other means of continuing to allow the treatment to occur before it then drains into the groundwater. Tertiary systems are different from conventional ones in that the building code now requires that they have an annual maintenance contract. When they are put in, you have to have them inspected once a year by a qualified individual who then submits the report to the